fully implemented these standards. And so, throwing a wrench into this at this point, it comes with significant costs, financial, educational, and otherwise.
Well, I agree with you to some degree. As I've been progressing in my business career, and I get young people and they're coming out of high school and they're being guided toward college, what I'm finding is we're losing a lot of the things that built our country, and that is the basic person that had to run the shovel, the basic guy that had to do the service work. They're all striving for the higher end jobs, and without the bottom tier of those jobs, we have no jobs. And so sometimes we try to strive, and that's the parent in most of us. We want our children to do well in business. We want them to do well in education, but a lot of our children, I have two boys that work in my business, and they're very good. One of them is extremely good with his hands, and he takes on that role. I have another son who's very good with the numbers, and he takes on that role. But neither one of those boys would do well if I switched them. And so, to sit there and put them into the same environment of trying to excel and try to achieve would not be doing them justice either. So we do that, I think, sometimes in education. We try to move them beyond what those children really want to do. And we have to have those positions or we don't have jobs for them. And it's all about our children doing better in society, and because they're going to have families and they want to produce a good lifestyle for their families as well. So, thank you. Representative Morris, and then
Mr. Clark, please.
Proceed.
Thank you. Just 3 or 4 more points I thought of. One of the things that we all want to make sure is that we don't want our education process in the state of Missouri to be a political football. And none of us want that. And, one of the things I worry about is if we had a Republican president sometime, are we going to be changing our standards because of political agendas? Because I think we need to be careful about that. It's not a Democrat thing. I got tons of friends who are Democrats.
I couldn't agree more. And I don't believe I couldn't agree more. And I think in Missouri in particular, the people who wrote our Constitution that set things up for exactly that purpose. The State Board of Education is a nonpartisan appointment. It is a body that functions deliberately to try to keep politics out of education in our state, and that's the way the Constitution was written. That's the way we've always been decided. And I would venture to say that you could probably find both Democrats and Republicans who are both for and against the Common Core. If we, when we have a new president, irrespective of party, I would suggest that no president is going to be able to mandate academic teaching and learning standards to states. I can't imagine states who have the authority for public education ceding that responsibility or that authority to the president. I just can't see that would ever happen. I can assure you that in my organization, which is other folks like me around the country, and I would suspect it's the same thing is true in the National Governors Association, that we jealously guard our authority over public education in our states. It is not a federal role. Now, yes, we take a lot of federal money, and with that money comes some strings. Some of that is reasonable, and quite frankly, some of it we don't like. And we pull against those as often, as regularly, and as hard as we can. But in the case of standards, those are state standards. They've been established by the state entities that were charged with that responsibility, And I can't imagine us ever ceding that to anybody in Washington.
Well, and that's what I like to hear, and you know, I just know with the recession the last several years, and we're just trying to come out of that, I know it had to be tempting for the superintendents, the top educators of this country in our state to resist that federal money, and they probably didn't even know exactly to begin with what Common Core was. They probably didn't know what the standards were going to be. They probably didn't know what the curriculum was going to be, and so that's, to me, again, why I would have started with caution and done a program for 3-5 years, whatever it took, before I started doing it statewide. Also, I wanted to point out to you, this is my own belief. You know, I don't know if our school system in the state of Missouri or this country is as broke as you think it is. If you stop to think about it, and I'm still heavily involved in several universities, and you know, we have students from all over the world that come to our country, and they learn from the brightest educators and professors, and then they go back to their country, and they use our information to actually be against us. Okay, we have that happen all the time. And yes, we have students in the United States that go travel abroad, but we don't have percentage-wise the same amount of students that come from our country that go someplace else. And it's more like a education, but it's almost like a posh vacation too for those college students, but not so with the foreign students coming over here to this country. And what Representative Spencer said a while ago, I really do believe. I mean, in this country, anyone has a right to education, and a lot of those students who don't want to learn or come from family backgrounds that don't support education, they all get counted in those statistics. Where other countries where they handpick their students to go to high school, go to elementary school even, whatever they do, they handpick people for their occupations and everything. So really the data always needs to be looked at that way. I just want to ask you, so what's the percentage of the curriculum that, I was on school board one time for 6 years, so what would I have with Common Core fully implemented, how much leeway would I have in a school board to develop my curriculum for the students? I mean, after I do all the things to work on those standards to make sure I get high test scores, what do I get to teach? What do my teachers get to teach if I was a school board member?
100% of the curriculum that you determine.
100%.
Here it comes.
We don't, nothing about this dictates curriculum.
Well,
Simply-
except for the fact that you don't get money probably if you don't test high. Maybe, I don't know. So you got to kind of
the system has to be, to get out, it's like in your business or any business, you know, in order to produce the optimal product or results, in this case, we're talking about children's success. So in order to produce the best results, you have to have a system that's aligned and connected. So you establish what it is you're trying to do, you figure out how you want to do that, how you want to deliver that, and then you measure it to see if you've done that, if you've done a good job of delivering what it is that you set out to do. And if that system is aligned, you get positive results. So the State Board of Education has established the academic standards, and that's always been the case for 20 years. So school districts then adopt or design, or parts of both, their curriculum to deliver those standards or to address those standards. And then there are assessments which are purchased and administered by the state that the districts give to their kids to measure their results. So that's how the system has always worked. There's nothing in what we've done recently that changes that.
I thought there was, and I understand that, but I thought there was some document, because I've had several people tell me this, so maybe it's not true, that 85% of the curriculum had to be built around the Common Core and the test standards, and 15% was going to be left up to the school board and that particular school system of what they, so what are they talking about, the 85-15?
Okay, what they're talking about is that in the Common Core, in order to, by the states agreed that if when you adopt the Common Core, if there are specific pieces of your state expectations that are not reflected in those Common Core standards, then you can add on essentially 15% additional. So, for example, in a state where you're required to teach, say, Missouri history, then that would become a part of our standards, but it would be different from the other states. So 15% can be modified to address the specific needs. In our case, when we looked at the standards and did the crosswalk with our old ones, we didn't find a need to take advantage of, or to do anything that would adjust any of that. So we didn't use that 15%. A few states did, I don't think very many did.
So would 15%, you think that's an adequate number to, percentage to teach what parents and people think that their children should learn?
I think so. Did I mean, that's pretty much, yeah.
Well, another thing, and not just Common Core, but this is my own opinion again, from Common Core and then the new education way of doing everything by computer. I didn't grow up in the computer world, so I've got grandkids that know more about computers than I do. But so I'm just dangerous with computers. But you know, one of the things I see that's going to be negative, yes, we've got to know computers, and we need to learn it quickly, and if you're going to compete, you need to know computers. But you know, writing, cursive writing, speaking, communication, you know, people play games all the time. All these kids that play games all the time, and if you're staring at a computer all the time, and they're not interacting with a live person, you know, in my business, in pharmacy business, you have got to communicate to patients. You've got to be able to communicate to doctors and nurses, and you have to make sure that you do it precisely and accurately. Lives are at stake. So when we're going into an education process where, and not just necessarily Common Core, but we're just doing computers all the time, like this representative said that, you know, they don't have textbooks. Well, let me tell you what you know what that does? That now keeps the parents from helping, grandparents from helping, parents as teachers from helping, everybody. There's no other backup because the teachers only teach so many hours a day, and there's no other backup, okay? And you know, when we've seen meetings at NICSA before where we had a speaker come in from, he was an attorney, he wasn't an educator, he was an attorney. He's written books on what's wrong with the education system in the country. And he always talks about product in is product out. If you have a good product in, you're going to get a good product out. And so look at your failing schools. Look at your failing school in the state of Missouri. He would tell you that those kids that are in those failing schools probably never had a book read to them. Probably never had a book read to them before they ever entered school. Probably didn't know what a book looked like. Didn't have an educational toy bought for them. They didn't have any of those things. I guarantee you, everybody in this room, I tell you, my 6 grandkids, they had an educational toy bought for them before they ever knew what to do with it. And we've read books to them, and I mean, spend time with them. So I'm afraid that with Common Core, everything using computers, I think it's a great thing in one way, but as the leader of education, you need to figure out how to make sure they know how to write. That's a way of communicating. Speaking, that's a way to communicate, not just by the computer and send somebody an internet message, but being able to actually communicate to that person. I worry about those things.
And we do too. We agree. We would never suggest that kids not be exposed to all of that. The one point I would make is, you know, you said product in, product out. One of the challenges that we have in public education is even if we get a bad product in, and I don't want to say it that way, but even if we get a child who comes into the system unprepared, no vocabulary, no exposure to any of the things that you mentioned, it is our responsibility to make sure that they come out with the skills that they need to be successful.
It's your responsibility. It's our responsibility, and it's your responsibility and our responsibility, but we're going to have a lesser success rate. And that's why I think it's important to go back to look at those failing schools and try to figure out how we can change that. Because if we can change that and have a better product going in, we'll have a better product going out.
I agree, sir. I'll never concede that some aren't gonna make it. I can't. I think we have to